Toronto Blue Jays made a very surprising move with Kevin Kiermaier that hints at what their trade deadline plans will be in the coming weeks. So I want to break down that as well as discuss what he had to say on the move, as we have some new updates on that front. So to break that down in this episode, as well as some major injury updates following the Blue Jays losing another game yesterday in heartbreaking fashion to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They desperately need some reinforcements, and we have some very interesting injury updates to go over today. So we're going to stay tuned for that on this episode. We're going to break it all down. But before we do, if you're a part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. It means the world to Peter and myself as we're on the road now to 14,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for continued support, and let's just get right into it. There's a lot to go over today, and obviously a couple days ago they made a very surprising move with Kevin Kiermaier. Now I'm on vacation, so I'm recording. Obviously this news happened a couple days ago, but bear with the quality for this video and for the next few days as I'm on I'll be on a cruise ship tomorrow. But let's break it all down. Let's get into it. Let's start with the first thing, and this is Kevin Kiermaier. Now you can see here again, Kevin Kiermaier told Ben Nicholson-Smith and Hazel May that Ross Atkins informed him that he had cleared waivers. Obviously more on Blue Jays Central, and that was before yesterday's game. But the interesting thing here is that if you were unaware, Kevin Kiermaier was put on revocable waivers in a telling trade deadline sign. Now, if you're unfamiliar what that is, basically you can either choose to work out a trade with the team that claimed him, let the team that claimed him and have him pay their salary, or pull him off the waivers and keep him. They've ultimately decided to pull him off the waivers as he cleared waivers and they didn't work out a trade with any other team. So Kevin Kiermaier is going to be on the Blue Jays probably at least until the trade deadline. But this is a very interesting move, and again, I think that it definitely is, like this article says, it's very telling as to what their trade deadline plans will be, because they're paying this guy, they signed him in the offseason for 1 year, $10 million, and he was coming off of a year where he put up a 710 OPS, one of his best years in recent memory, especially over the last handful of years, last 5 or so years. But then he comes back out this year, I'll get into his stats in a minute, and just has a really disappointing season so far. Like, the defense is still there, he's still an elite defender, but for a team that already has Dalton Varsho, whose best position is center field and where his best utilization is in center field, signing Kevin Kiermaier was kind of redundant to a degree, because they already have that defense, and you're now limiting Varsho to being the best defensive left fielder in baseball, sure, but you're limiting a lot of his value. And by limiting Dalton Varsho's value, it becomes, why would you have made the trade way back in the first place for a guy like Dalton Varsho? And again, let's just get into Kevin Kiermaier's stats here. He's having a pretty rough year. He's well below league average hitting. He hasn't hit many home runs, not many RBIs. His on base percentage is really bad. I'm not going to harp on the guy too much, but the fact that they put him on waivers tells a lot. And again, it was the revocable waiver, so they took him back off. He cleared the waivers. No team claimed him, and that is mainly because of his salary. Again, 1 year, $10 million. They could have worked out a trade. No team wanted to trade for him and then work out the deal. The Jays didn't want to retain any of Kevin Kiermaier's salary, because part of what this screenshot entails regarding revocable waivers and how it's a telling trade deadline sign, if they decide to trade him, they shed some salary, or if they decide to trade him in this case, they shed some salary, they open up some more another roster spot. We've seen a lot of the young guys who got called up to the Blue Jays. Leo Jimenez is playing unbelievable defensively and unbelievable offensively as well. Spencer Horwitz, like I discussed in yesterday's video, has been a shining star for the Blue Jays this entire year. So now, by them putting Kiermaier on the waivers, you're setting yourself up to really go young and change your direction, while also giving one of your best players in Dalton Varsho the full reins in center field. And it makes total sense. Now, the funny thing was that he was put on these waivers mid-game by the Toronto Blue Jays, or he was, the day that they put him on waivers a couple nights ago, he was starting that game. And he also started yesterday's game against the Arizona Diamondbacks, in which the Jays lost. But it was very interesting that they put a player, and he's a beloved player. He's a great defender. He had a phenomenal year last year. This year he hasn't been able to bounce back in that front, and he spoke out about this. And again, Kevin Kiermaier said that after the game 2 nights ago, John Schneider told him that he's on waivers, as Joel Sherman reported. Quote, it's the chance for a contending team to claim me if they want, from what I was just told. I totally get it with where we are as a team. And again, the Jays are in a very rough spot now as a team. They're 8 games below 500. They're 9 games or so back of a wild card spot. And being 9 games back of a wild card spot as we're approaching near the halfway point of the year is really, really rough. We're actually past the halfway point of the year. The trade deadline's approaching. We're about 2 to 3 weeks away from the trade deadline on July 30th. You're at a point now where, will a team give up assets for Kevin Kiermaier? I highly, highly doubt it. Should they? Probably not. You're getting a 4th outfielder that cannot really hit this year, but is an elite defender. So I'm sure some team, I'm a bit surprised he didn't get claimed on waivers at all. But again, the salary is what kills it here. 1 year, $10 million. If you're giving up a roster spot and having to pay $10 million, that's the rough point. And clearly no other team was willing to do that. No other team was willing to to really pay or work a trade or work on the money, anything like that. And the Jays were certainly not willing to keep any of the cash. Because at that point, if you're retaining, let's say, $6 million or $7 million, whatever it ends up being of a trade or a signing or whatever it is, like if you're retaining his cash, even if it's his 10 million, there's no point of getting rid of him at this point. If you're keeping his cash, you're not trading him away to another team just to say, hey, we'll retain all the salary, the whole 10 million. Let's just give him away. There's no point to do that. You're better off keeping him. He's a veteran presence until the roster starts to crunch again. I guess the only argument would be give his time to someone else, give his playing time to someone else. But there's not many outfielders in the minors that even have enough in the tank regarding being a touted prospect to give them a chance, maybe at least until they fully turn the corner of becoming sellers, which they certainly are leaning in that direction. But again, the latest news, he got cleared, so he's going to stay for the time being, and it'll be very interesting to see how it kind of translates to their trade deadline plans. But let's break down some injuries now, because the Jays are in a very interesting spot. Their bullpen blew another game yesterday. They had a 4-2 lead going into the 8th inning. No Jimmy Garcia, no Bichette, no Jordan Romano. It's just been absolutely brutal. Trevor Richards is starting to struggle. He gave up the runs that ultimately led to them losing after Chad Green gave up the walk-off sac fly to left field there to Dalton Varsho last night. But we have some injury updates. Let's start with Bichette. He is not expected to take part on on-field drills with the Blue Jays today, which was yesterday, nor is he likely available off the bench. An IL stint is possible, in which case Brian Serven could be activated. Serven's here in Arizona with the Jays and would allow the Jays to use Jansen and Kirk more freely, kind of putting one of those two at DH, especially with the way that Kirk has been hitting. Putting one of those two at DH definitely makes some sense to inject some offense into this lineup. But Bichette's been it's been the season of hell for him. He's had injuries the whole year. He's been underperforming when he's been on the field, and we had some interesting comments, which we'll make a video on in a few days here, kind of talking about how, his future in Toronto, whether he likes the San Francisco Giants, and all these weird things. So the vibe around Bichette, it almost seems like he wants to get moved to a degree. And remember the comments back there a while ago from him to Hazel May, basically saying, "I wouldn't be surprised if they trade me." I mean, I wouldn't be either at this point, though I don't think they ultimately do that. But that's the latest update on him. And this one from, we have an update as well regarding Jimmy Garcia here. So he threw another rehab outing yesterday with AAA and really struggled. 17 pitches, couldn't find the zone. The velo was down, his max being, his average, being 95.2, and then his average in the velo yesterday was a little bit rough. So Blue Jays kept Garcia out through the All-Star break is likely at this point, just because of how bad that this outing went for him, which is a bit unfortunate because Jimmy Garcia is desperately needed back. And again, he was slated to pitch yesterday. He did. It didn't go great. And for a guy like Jimmy Garcia, what he means to this bullpen is insurmountable. How important he's been in Jordan Romano's absence was great. Chad Green has been one of the best relievers in baseball this year. He's starting to slow down a little bit, but we've seen that's what happens when pitchers start to get overworked in the bullpen. You start to see them slow down. You start to see them get overworked, and that leads to a failed production. Like worse production from Chad Green, worse production from all these guys, and it starts to kind of have a domino ripple effect where Chad Green's pitching more, so he starts to be a bit more fatigued out there. Then you have to ask guys like Trevor Richards to pitch in the 8th and 9th inning. We saw Trevor Richards try to close the game a few days ago. The Jays ultimately lost it to the Giants, and it's just over and over again. It keeps happening. It's very rough, but hopefully the Jays can get their health underway pretty soon, because time is running out for the Jays, as we all know. And if they can get Jimmy Garcia back, if they can get Jordan Romano back, which is unlikely at this point, and Bichette, maybe they can make some sort of push, but at this point that seems a bit delusional, a bit unlikely. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. What are your thoughts on the Kiermaier stuff? What are your thoughts on these injury updates? Hopefully Jays can take care of business tomorrow against Arizona. We'll see you soon.